So I'm right here. They have these bike paths right here. How do they salt the bike paths between here? How do they move the snow out of the bike path? Do they have, because they designed this, you would think they'd have specialty plows, right? You can see the two things, right? So you think they would have specialty plows, right? Because they have to have a plow to go through there, and then they have to salt in between there, so bicyclists don't wipe out. Truly. So bicyclists don't wipe out, or they're on their scooter. How do you use the scooters in the winter? So here you can salt and clean the bike trails, right? Here. But again, you got people opening and closing doors. So, if they open a door, the bicyclist swerves into the road, then the car hits them. Worst case scenario, but they have those up there, and it does happen. I looked in the mirror. The bicyclist was way behind me. I opened the door, and the motherfucker didn't slow down, and he ran right into me. And Jen was there when at Blue Man Group. And he started, I'm like, dude, you were fucking a half a block away from me. I opened my door. I was halfway out my door. You kept on coming and ran into me. And then he said, oh, and I figured he was a scam artist. He was a scam artist because I saw him in the rearview mirror and he was back there. I figured I get out, I'm out of his way. He slowed down a little bit. Truly, slow down a little bit. He must have sped up. Truly, he must have sped up. But he started arguing with me, and this is with Jen and her aunt from Korea. And, we were going to Blue Man, then I took him out for drinks after. We had a really good time. But this guy, he was a white guy, and he was a little bit older, and he started arguing with me, and I'm like, hold it. I saw you in my side mirror. You were more than a block away, or half a block away, and I got out. My door was open. I was almost out of the car. Well, actually, I was out of the car. I was fully standing up and out of the car when he ran into me and with the door open. I didn't get around the door. But I said that. He started, and then he's like, yeah, okay. See you later, dude. Because he's like, I'm like, no, you're not playing that game with me. I saw you in my side mirror. Just like the guy in the highway, I saw him from the second lane turn into the first lane and slam into me. But some reason, he doesn't get aggravated. He changed lanes and slammed into us. He could see the cars were stopped or going slow. He changed lanes. He went from the left lane into the right lane, slamming into us. So isn't that aggravated? Isn't that assault? Isn't that attempted murder? Truly, he changed lanes slamming into us. So isn't that unbelievable? Changing lanes. No one else on the highway. Like I told you, he had multiple lanes he could have moved to. He changed lanes to hit me. He hit the girls, then hit me. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Premeditated. But the doctors won't treat my tinnitus. Oh, we have no cure. Or like the black guy coming in and sitting down next to me in the bar, who my head hit off the ground. And he sat in the bar. And then he started eavesdropping. Then he told me that, why are you in an all-black bar and you shouldn't be? I'm like, but the bartender. And that's what I said. The bartender, she served me a drink. I'm sitting here. No one told me this was an all-black bar. And now you're telling me to start searching? I told him to go F himself. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't she tell me this is an all-black bar? They have signs that says color people. They even walk in the door. Color people can't sit here. They didn't send them and say, hey, go sit over there. And then we're coming over to you and tell you that colored people can't sit here, or colored people. That's not what they did down south. They said, you can't sit here. You have to sit at the back. He didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me anything. He's telling me, it's all, are you a doorman? Do you work at this place? Who the hell are you? All those other people I stayed away from. I sat in the far corner up front. She even stayed away from me. I told her she had nice legs, and we talked about water purification for a brief second. He came in telling me why I'm in an all-black bar, I shouldn't be here, and that I shouldn't be searching black people. He eavesdropped on me. He was staring at me, just like the Hispanic guy did at Whole Foods. I told you about that incident at Whole Foods. The Hispanic guy was at Whole Foods. I'm working on my computer for my AIF. I did pass my designation and got the AIF. I didn't get the AIFA. That's a whole different story. That was later. But the Hispanic guy, he was threatening me. And then I just looked away, kept my eyes on my computer, and I saw he got up, and then he walked around, and I made sure he wasn't coming around from behind. But then I used to see him at Starbucks, and he never did it again. But he was sitting across from me while I was sitting at Whole Foods on Chicago by Weed Street right there. And anyways, he was staring at me unbelievably. It's just me. I'm in a booth. He's sitting in front of me. He turned the chair around and he was staring at me like he was going to beat the hell out of me. Truly. Piercing through me with the eyes, just giving me this meaning. A Hispanic male. And so what did I do? I just looked down at my computer and everything. When he got up and I made sure he didn't come around. I closed my computer. I closed my laptop put it in my bag, and left Whole Foods. Truly, I put it in my bag, left Whole Foods. Then I saw him on Starbucks on Rush. That's no longer there a few times. But what the hell? I've never seen the guy before. I'm studying for the AIFA. I'd never seen the guy before. I was sitting down in my booth. There's many other white males here. There were many other white males there. So why you targeting me? I don't know you. I've never seen you before in my life. And I do all this charity in this Hispanic community. Truly. I mean, the stuff I did for Claudia and all of her friends, I did incredible amounts of charity in the Hispanic community. Truly. And I'm like, And so I just looked at my computer, and finally he stopped staring at me and he walked. I just kept my head down, looking at my computer, didn't stare at him. I don't want to antagonize him. I didn't antagonize him. He stopped staring at me because I wasn't staring back. I realized it when I looked up, and he's like this hulking look and so on. So I just stopped, and I looked down at my computer, and he settled down. He did settle down. He got up, and then he went down towards the door, then right by the produce section. Then he went left, I should say, by the produce section and walked into the store there. And I made sure he wasn't coming around. And so I don't know why he's going around me. But again, so I don't understand why he was threatening me. But I never got to ask him, and I never approached him at Starbucks. Never said a word to him. Ever said a word to him. I finished my AIF and flying colors, almost 100% on my test. And oh yeah, that's right, I took it. I could have taken it in a non-secure facility, but I paid $100 to go to a testing facility on my own. They didn't require me to go to a testing facility. I didn't want to be like all the rest of the other people who did open book. I told KJ, I didn't want to be like the rest of the people. I did mine closed book. No assistance of any kind. No open book. They allowed you to take it open book. I didn't take it open book. I could have looked up all the answers. How is that testing me? So I paid to go to this testing center in Schaumburg, $100. And I got the test from there, and I sat in a computer room. Some lady ran the testing center. It was a educational center and a testing center. Yeah, it was a learning center and a testing center. But those testing centers aren't learning centers. Why aren't the testing centers learning centers? Her place in Schaumburg was a learning center and not an official testing. I sat in her office. But again, she monitored everything. I left everything outside and everything. And I did this on my own because I believe in going to the higher standard. They said I could take it open book. I said, no way. I didn't take it open book. I want it to be better than everybody else. So I elevated my personal standard. And I can tell people, the AIFA or the AIF, they allow people. I didn't. And I took in this testing facility. I took a closed book. And I considered I reached a higher standard. You might disagree with me, but I'm just telling you, I try as a professional to hold myself to a higher standard. None of the other people, they're trying to cheat. I've been in testing facilities and there was stuff on the blackboard, truly on the blackboard. I was at this one testing facility taking this one exam and they had answers on the blackboard. And I erased the answers on the blackboard. I told the person there's answers on the blackboard because I might be set up. Truly, I felt, am I being set up here? But I went out, told the testing, and then I erased them, and they came in and checked, and the blackboard was cleared. And I went in and I took the exam and passed. But somebody was writing answers who took the test before me, and I guess they used the blackboard. Truly, and the testing person didn't check. They were gone. They took their test and they used the blackboard to figure out some math. Truly, they used the blackboard. And it was there for me to use it as well. It was there for me to use it as well. The blackboard was there for to figure out formulas and that. They had chalk and a blackboard in the test room. Instead of giving you the paper, this is an individual test room, they had a whole blackboard. And they had chalk, and you could write on the blackboard and figure out formulas, and you could write things down and continue on your test. So if you wanted to brain dump, you could write everything on the blackboard. But these were individual test silos. And then you could write it on the blackboard. Now, the bad thing is the blackboard was behind me, not in front of me. And you couldn't take the computer and turn it around. Meaning you couldn't sit on the other side of the desk and look at the blackboard. So the blackboard was behind you. It would have been nice if the computer faced the blackboard and you get up and you just walk over to the blackboard and you do your stuff. And that's legal for you. You can mind dump. They teach you to do that with the CFA and everything. You can do that with the CFP. You remember formulas or whatever and you write them down in your paper. That's all fair game. This place, they didn't give us paper. They gave us a blackboard. Okay. But somebody left the answers. The test person didn't clean the blackboard. But anyways, I'm down here in Chicago, and this is a longer video. And here's the Sesame Street, and I love Sesame Street. I love all the characters in that. I'm a big Sesame Street fan. I'm still a big Sesame Street fan. I love Big Bird and Elmo, the Cookie Monster, all them. Count Dracula. I love Count Dracula. That's awesome. Count Dracula. Count. It was a great pun. So Count Dracula. And he counts 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's awesome to this day. It's awesome. So I'm a big Sesame Street fan. I go to Disney World and I go to the children's theme park. Every time I go to It's a Small World. I have to go to It's a Small World, but I take the teacup rides and the ones in the Kiddie Land. I like those rides too. So it makes me happy. So anyways, but I'm wondering down here with the bike lanes and that, salting and so on. So I'm going to leave this video. It was supposed to be a short one, but it's snowing in Chicago, and I didn't actually do what I was going to do. But here's where they're talking about building the Bears Stadium, and it makes sense that they would move it a little bit more south, and they don't have to worry because these people don't have a view anyways. Truly, these are all basically roll rises, and there's nothing but a vacant lot. It's not much of a view, so they'll get an enhanced view if they have a stadium. Truly. And then it's good for the Union right here. They're right across from the stadium. Local. So Union Local, they can be part of building the stadium, the Union Local. And then they have the hospital down here, and it's right on top of the stadium. Oh, that's right. You have all the people. You have ambulances in the hospital. They can stand by in the stadium during games and special events. And you got a short trip right to the hospital. Wow. It is not Michael Reese, but whatever that hospital is right down here. So, yeah, and that's why you have fat tires in the wintertime. So you need the fatter tires so you get traction. So you have to have fat tires if you're biking in the winter. Truly, fat, knobby tires to bike in the winter. You can't have those thin tires. And that's why the forks have to be adjustable. But no one makes adjustable forks. Not when they can go in and out. The forks slide. You adjust them. There's a screw and allows you to move them in. And they can have different slots, or it can be a slide arm and then you lock it down. And so the forks can go out to get fatter tires and move in for thinner tires. So you can get thinner tires during the summertime. They don't weigh as much. You don't need as much traction. And then in the wintertime, you can put on the fatter tires. So the bike can be all season. Or if you want to go off-roading, the city, you have the city slick tires. Truly, it's not raining out. You need, just like racing cars, you have the slick tire. You don't need grooves. And then you have your all-season tires in case it rains while the bike's out and everything. But the slick tires are perfect when it's dry, summer, and the pavement's warm. You don't want the grooves. You want more rubber. That's why racing cars don't have any grooves, because there's no water. And they want as much traction as possible, as much rubber on the surface to get the best traction. So you drive in slicks, but that means you have to watch the weather in that and have to be able to change out the tires. But with a bicycle, you can go to a bike shop or flop them out, just take the bike, turn it upside down, and change the tires yourself. And so you tell them why you use the slick tires. That's for dry surfaces, like you go Saudi Arabia, hardly. Now you have to worry about sand. Yeah, slick tires aren't good on gravel, aren't good on sand, because they don't have any grooves. Sand is good with knobby tires. Not water, not the water tire. No, it's too small. You have to have the knobby and the bigger gaps for sand. But if you tell them and explain, then you can have them change out the tires for bicycles. And that's a beautiful Christmas tree. But Seaway, Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. And Lake Meadows. So, and there's a church right down here. And so it's good for this community. I can see the stadium staying here and not going to Arlington Heights. And with that, they can renovate Lakeshore Drive. They can renovate these streets. Truly, part of it is updating and beautifying the community. So they would have to talk to the mall and everything, because you want to beautify the mall and everything around the stadium, because you want enhanced shopping and everything. So you'd have to do a community beautification program. Truly, because like Boston Airport, I didn't really go back for a long time, because I got out of the airport, and this is the same in Houston. I got out of the airport and it was ghetto. I mean, it was just unbelievably horrible. Now, the land was cheap for them, but you think the airport would have invested in the surrounding community and beautified it. Just like New York, when I got out of the highway and all that was garbage. And I'm like, wow, I want to get out of this area, and I'll fly into a different airport. Truly, because there's several airports and I can fly into New Jersey. So I didn't want to land in the middle of the ghetto. Truly. It's cheap land in that, but you think the airport would have did beautification. They would have beautified the roadways, put a little money to welcome people when you get off and you get out of the plane and you get on the roadway and you walk out the door like at Midway. It looks nice. The neighborhood looks nice. You think the airport would work with the communities and do some kind of community beautification program, like with Gateway Green and Chicago Care, and they would beautify the neighborhood right here. Gateway Green, Chicago Care can work with the Chicago Bears. They pay in. The Chicago Bears gives to their charity. The charity works with the community to do the beautification and renovation. And so you have this beautiful bridge here, and it goes out overlooking Lake Michigan, but it's totally beautiful. I don't know who built this, but this thing is beautiful. Totally beautiful. And this is the Cardinal Myers Center. Okay, it's the Archdiocese, but it's great. But it's unbelievably, this bridge is beautiful. This is beautiful. I mean, so there's parts of this neighborhood that are extremely beautiful. So this is Stephen A. Douglas tomb. And then I guess Senator Douglas. Okay, this is a beautiful statue. I don't know who that is. But again, there's some beautiful things here. So Gateway Green and that. So the Bears can give to these charities. And these charities, as part of the giving, have to work with the community. And they say, we're going to work through Gateway Green. And we're going to work through Chicago Care. Because you want them to oversee the projects. You don't want to give it to the general people. You want them to supervise and oversee so your architects and your builders can work with them. Truly, can work with them. And so you can control through the charities what's done and participation, and you get the neighborhood buy-ins because it'll appreciate all their property value. And you know what they do? They do striping for parallel parking. Now, you can't see them in the wintertime, but each parallel park, they put the striping, and it's big enough for an SUV, and you have to park within the stripes. So each car, instead of being random, you have to park. Even if there's more room, you stay the gap. So if the car is shorter, then it's shorter. And you still park within your two stripes. So the better parallel parking, they have the lines on the street for each segment. They're usually yellow. You can have them white. And they're vertical to the street. You're parking parallel, the lines are vertical, and they tell you the size of each space. And Lopez knows, like, is this Lopez? This is street parking, right? So is this permit through the alderman? Truly, the alderman, did they buy a sticker to park on the street? So I don't know how the street parking goes, but this is street parking, and they have to be paid for it. And this keeps the cars registered and everything. Truly registered. So the police can go in and see if they have a permit to park here. They have no permit. I had the book. Jen bought the book, and I had to put a permit every day in the car. Every day that said I had a right to park in this area. And the police can search the permit books. Truly. And they would find out Jennifer Kim, she lives at 1818 South Prairie. That's who's responsible for the car. Jennifer Kim was 1515 South Prairie and unit 818, but they could have searched it. The police can search the permits. And so you know if a strange car is here, but if a strange car is here, it has to have a permit in the window. Even for short-term parking, they got to put that little permit in the window from the alderman, or they can't park, and you tow the car. Truly, you can't park, you tow the car, but again, they got to make sure that the car isn't booby-trapped or anything. I feel bad for tow truck drivers, not that it's ever happened, but the car is not parked there, so they should have the police check it out before they tow it away, running the plates and everything. So those tow truck drivers are very vulnerable. They're picking up things and they don't know what is, So they need the police to run the plates and everything on the car to see if the plates are stolen, if the car is stolen, and if it is, they can't tow it. They have to investigate it. They can't touch the car. The tow truck driver can't just jack the car. So the tow truck drivers have to run the stuff and make sure that the car isn't stolen or anything. It's legitimate. That's why turning in the plates and legitimizing it and having tamper-proof symbols in the plate, they don't tamper-proof the plates, but they have to tamper-proof the plates. They have to, just like tamper-proof money, and they have to do it with the stickers, and they have to do it with the plates. The plates have to be tamper-proof. So they have holograms or other things that they can't be copied. They can't be copied. So, and this goes for every state. It's just like our money. They can't be copied. That way, they know the plate's legitimate or not. And they can run the number, and they run the number, and they're like, oh, there's 2 vehicles with that license plate number. Well, then you have a problem. So if they went through all that and made a fake plate, when you run the plate, you'll already know there's another vehicle that's registered that's not theirs. It's registered to this person over there. So they're parked over here, but the car is registered to someone in Deerfield, Mr. Miller in Deerfield. And it's parked over here, and it says it's supposed to be on this, but it's not that car. And they could get a lookalike, but that's where the VIN number comes in. Because the plate has to match the VIN number, the vehicle identification number. And then the vehicle identification number has to make the match and model of the car and everything. And so again, if there's 2 VINs and they're registered, because when they have stolen cars and they change the VINs, you run the VIN and they'll pull up a car and then be like, there's 2 cars with that VIN number. Obviously, one of them isn't legitimate. And the VIN numbers need to be tamper-proof. The VIN numbers need to be tamper-proof. So you can't grind them off. This is why they grind them off in it. They don't make them tamper-proof. So they can't fake them if you put counterfeiting measures into the VIN number. They don't put counterfeiting measures. They just give you a number that's on metal. And they just take a little grinder and then grind it off and then stamp out another piece of metal and put that piece of metal there. Fake VIN number. But if the VIN numbers actually have tamper-proof systems with the license plates, with the city stickers having tamper-proof, well, then the VIN number has to match the license plates. They have to fraudulently create a VIN number. Truly, and the VIN numbers can have chips in them that are secured. And I showed you the way to make chips that are impregnable, and they go into the VIN, and the chips in the VIN, and then the VIN number with the tamper-proof license plates, and you start matching, and you're like, well, you can't have stolen vehicles on the street anymore because you're going to match the plate to the VIN number, to the registration, and you're like, hold it, it doesn't match. But they haven't did that with the catalytic converters in that, and they can put tamper-proof systems in them. So if somebody grinds them off, they can't get access to the tamper-proof. So this is where Carfax and that, ethical car places, because they're going to replace these parts and so on and so forth. But all these parts have to have VIN numbers. They have to be somehow engraved in a tamper-proof system And they have to make sure the numbers have to be corrosion proof. The tamper-proofing system has to be corrosion proof. And so when they take off the catalytic and say they had to replace it, that one has to be turned in. And if it gets damaged, truly the catalytic gets damaged and it's not functioning, well, then you have to turn it in. So you have to put the tamper-proof system in a place that truly makes it very hard for them to accidentally damage from hitting a stone or a speed bump. Truly, a stone or a speed bump. So you put it in, and all these parts should have tamper-proof. So, Carluccino's, an Italian restaurant. And I love this right here, Fat Poor and all that. But think about this. You stop car bombing. You can do this globally. Car bombing. They use stolen cars. They don't want to track. And if you take the ability away to use stolen vehicles, you take the ability away. You can't have temporary plates. Even at used car lots and that, you have to have plates that are registered to you. So with my brother and this car, truly, so I'd be a secondary registered driver on the VIN, truly, on the insurance and on the registration. So it's not only an insurance, he has to put me on the registration of the vehicle. So anyone that drives the car has to be on the registration. Anyone. So if your friend says, oh, dude, can I borrow your car? Can't borrow my car. I have to put you on the registration. So I have to go to the website with the state. I have to get your driver's license, and I have to go on the state website, and then they have to scan my license in, and all that goes in there, and I'm as a temporary driver on my car. Temporary driver. So you can add drivers, and the state charges you a fee, $10 or whatever, and you go to the website, and you can do it on your phone. And it says take a picture of the front and back of the driver's license. And the driver's license has to have something with photos where it can see tamper-proof features with the photo. So when you're taking pictures, it has to show in the photo. The tamper-proof features, not embedded, it has to show, because when they print it off, it doesn't matter. It's in the picture, you can see the tamper-proof. So they can't just print it off and make a bill with those tamper-proof features. So you have to set it up correctly, and I'm not going to go through that, but when they take the picture, the front and back of the ID, it has tamper-proof features. The back of the ID doesn't have any tamper-proof features. Why doesn't the back of the ID, where it has the scanning strip and everything, why doesn't the back of the driver's license have tamper-proof features? It doesn't. The front does, but the back doesn't. But if you put it front and back, and then if you cut the ID, you try to splice it in the middle, it violates the tamper-proof system. The ID turns green or something. Truly. So you can't slice it in half, because what they do is they skin off the top on the passport, somebody's original picture, and then they put somebody else's picture on top of it. But if the picture has tamper-proof over it on the passport, tamper-proof embedded to the paper, you literally have to replace the paper, the whole thing. And that means it's almost impossible to fake, because that whole sheet, like an ID, has to be replaced, and you're going to get all the tamper-proof features. This is more important than counterfeit money. But the counterfeit money features can go into passports and so on, and you can use colors, and you can use fibers, truly colors and fibers and holograms and other things to make sure that the picture is secure and they can't change any of the information on the passport. Truly. So all the encryption systems, they don't make the encryption systems. They have to send it out to the company. They send the passport out, and it's verified through a government agency. It goes into the company that makes it, and they embed it in everything, and then they send it back. So it's a separate entity. It's a private business. And they do the embedding and everything's accounted for. The IRS audits them, material audits, private inspections. They have to account for every piece of scrap. Truly, every piece of scrap. They have to account for all the material. So they can't be making some on the side. Truly. And the vendors that give them the material prohibit it. They can only give them what equals the amount of passports they make. They can't get any more material. And any scrap material has to be returned and it has to be weighed and accounted for. It's just like a nuclear bomb, nuclear material. It has to be the same inspection system with the passport. It has to be that thorough of a system where everything's accounted for. And now we have the technology and everything. And auditing companies, Deloitte and Touche, Ernst & Young, and that, they can be the auditors. They're the inspector generals, right? Private third party overseeing the Chicago inspector general. So they're working together. Truly, making sure the inspector general of Chicago is not corrupt, and the inspector general of Chicago is making sure we don't have an Ernst & Young situation. So they're cross-checking. That's our founding fathers. You had the Senate, and through this you had the House, the Senate, and then you had the executive branch, and then you had the judicial branch. It was creating these checks and balances. So this is the public-private creating a check and balance with each other checking. This is why you can't have conspiracies. This is why you can't have conspiracies. Because then public and private conspiratize together. And that means if you get collusion on a large scale, then you can have people doing terrorism and everything. Truly, these organizations now are susceptible to terrorism. They're susceptible to corruption and bribery and everything. And you can't have that. So you have to make sure they stay pure. And so you have to have, this is why we have the laws against collusion. So government entities don't conspiratize with private, and private can't conspiratize with government, and the state can't conspiratize with the federal, and the local government can't conspiratize with the county can't conspiratize with the state can't conspiratize with the federal. That's why we have separation. Federal, state, county, local, independent governments. This is called check and balance. They're cross-checking each other. Truly, the governments are cross-checking each other. So the county oversees the businesses in Chicago as well. The state oversees the businesses in Chicago. So Chicago businesses are cross-checked, and the federal government oversees the businesses. So they have the local government overseeing, but then they have the county government overseeing. Then they have the state government overseeing. Then they have the federal government. All of this is to prevent corruption. Then they have the independent auditors. Independent auditors. So you can't get all levels of government conspiratizing because you get the independent auditors like KPMG and everybody else. So I'll let this guy go because he's saving the world. He must be a really important person. He's a VIP. Very important piece of shit. That's what Satan is for. To clean up the garbage. People who don't know their place. Truly, Satan looks for people who don't know their place. God is all about respect. Aretha Franklin, respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, respect. That's what humbling is about in the Bible, humbling yourself. It's all about respect, and God governs all of your respect. And if you don't, you burn. but that's your choice. But getting back to it, this is why we have these places in separation and we have these checks and balances. So, Ralph Lauren, join us in fight against cancer. Yeah, I joined the fight against cancer a long time ago, Susan G. Komen. So I joined the fight against all of cancer. Breast cancer, but, oh yeah, that's with Jen. I was on the bone marrow donor. I've always been on the organ donor, many other lists, okay? But I'm trying to get rid of the need for bone donation using their own stem cells. I'm trying to get away from the need for organ donation using their own organs to regenerate, taking them out of the body, repairing them, or regenerative services. So I'm trying to get people so they don't, that's my whole thing about, being able to grow blood from people's stem cells. Truly grow blood from people's stem cells. So you need some stem cells, and then you can reproduce those stem cells in the lab, and then you don't need blood donations anymore. You can grow your AB negative, your AB positive, your O and that, and you grow them from the stem cells in the lab. And that's what I was talking about, growing your own blood so you don't need to do blood drives or blood donations anymore. And that means people don't have to worry about that. The Red Cross still exists. They're the ones generating it. Their labs are generating. They still need to bring blood to people, but they're grown from stem cells. And you still have to harvest the stem cells. So you need initially getting the stem cells to start growing. But once you harvest it, it's just like anything else. Once you create the seeds, then you don't need any blood donations anymore. So it gets rid of it, and those people can be focused on other aspects of the business. And now you start, so if you have a great tragedy in Chicago, they can grow as much blood as they need. We need 10,000 pints of O negative. No problem. Well, custom order, we have the plant, we'll regrow the stem cells. Now, how fast can you grow the stem cells will matter, but they should grow fairly fast in that once you get down the process. And so you can create your own supply in that, and there's no need for blood donations anymore. Truly, you don't need those. Those are just informational centers. No more blood donations. Truly, you don't need to do blood donations. So they can do other things to clean the blood. Truly. They can do other things. You don't need donations anymore. So we can get rid of blood donations. We can get rid of needing other people's organs and that, other people's bone marrow. Truly, once we create the seeds and that, then we can generate, and all we do is keep the seeds, because from the seeds you can always create the harvest. So we can cryogenically store the seeds. So we don't need them to give bone marrow, or we don't need them to give blood anymore. And this stops using humans for trade and everything. Truly. And they don't have to pay for it. They can just go the blood and they make money. So they don't have to pay for getting the blood. Now they'll have to pay for the people that work in the lab to create the blood and everything. But who cares? Truly, that creates a lot of education. Educational institutions need to train people. Certification institutions need to do ongoing training. Storage facilities, cryogenic, and many others. Ones that grow, and it's another form of farming. It's another form of agriculture. They use agriculture to harvest stem cells all the time from plants. And they can use those stem cells from plants to heal plants. We can get into botany healing with stem cells. Truly, when there's diseased trees or diseased this, and then we can heal infected cattle and infected chicken with stem cells. And then we can do blood donations because we can grow blood. So if a horse needs an operation, we can just grow the blood for the horse in the lab, we know the blood type of the horse, and we just grow the blood, and then they do the operation, and they have the pints right there. Now, if they need more, well, you put a margin of error in there. I mean, they're not supposed to be cutting them where all the blood is pouring out of them. They're surgeons, right? There has to be some kind of, they can clamp off the vein, right? They can stop a bleeder with a vascular clamp and so on. So they shouldn't be dumping a shitload of blood. And in the situation, when they suck out the blood, they can filter it through a filtration system and give them their blood back. Truly, through a filtration system to back up the blood they have. They have the rich blood they give them, but as they filter out, the centrifuge separates the blood, the plasma, the platelets, the white and red, and it filters it out and recomposes their blood. And if they don't need it, that's fine. They don't need it, and then they can give the blood. Truly, give the blood, break it down into platelets, and use it for something else. But the suction system now doesn't flush the blood down the drain. It recycles the blood. And so all it does is go through a purification. It moves out any, foreign matter and contaminants, and now you have their whole blood. So no one can bleed out anymore. You'll never run out of blood. So you have a couple to give them, and then the machine captures the rest, and they always have enough blood. They can't bleed out. There's no running short. Truly, just because of an accident or something, you have a couple pints, and you have to give them fresh blood as you're doing the surgery, but the machine is recapturing everything, and that's backup emergency. So they can't run out of blood in surgery. There's no more bleeding out. There's no more, we don't have enough blood. No, that's a thing of the past. So they always have. They get a couple pints for the surgery, for, say, the horse, and you sell them a couple pints, and then the recycling machine is the backup. As they do the suction, it goes through, it processes it, and it takes a while for the machine to separate in that, but it causes backup. And so now you have the 2 pints, plus you have the machine that's going to create the backup from the blood that's sucked out. And now you have the backup. And you can use that for many other purposes. Truly, you can use the horse blood for many other purposes. And you can sell it back to the blood bank. And they can buy it back. So you bought 2, return 1, and they sell it for some other purpose. Truly, some other purpose. And so now you have this system where no one can bleed out anymore, because you have the blood that you grew, that you provided for them, and then you have the recycled blood. So if you have a pandemic or a massive tragedy, massive casualty, you can recycle the blood, and you have so much available, you don't need people running in for donations anymore. No more running in for donations, and the lab can grow more blood. So you can use their own blood, recycling it, truly capturing it, put it back into them, and then eventually the lab can grow and supply you with some more blood. If they need some more blood, they have contamination or something, they need more flesh blood. But you can have 1 million people hurt and need blood urgently. And so you can recycle as much as you can to meet the need, and then the blood banks work globally. Truly, the supply works globally. They grow blood in Europe, they grow blood in Asia, and all over the place. And they work together as a network. So if there's a pandemic, they just ship it here. That's why I want supersonic transports and hypersonic transports eventually. I want to use space where the plane goes up and it is back in the United States in an hour. Truly. An emergency. We need to get all this blood to China. Instead of having a line up and then you have to test the blood and screw that. The United States will have you blood in 1 hour. We'll go from the lab and it'll take an hour to transport it. You'll get blood in the next 3 hours. It'll hook up at Midway, a supersonic or hypersonic transport. It'll be there in 3 hours. It'll leave from China, go straight up, leave the lower atmosphere and go into the upper atmosphere, which is almost nothing, and it'll slingshot over and be in China in, say, 4 hours. And here's 1 million pints of blood. Truly, by working with the global network, they can send from Europe and from Africa, from Asia, to wherever needed. So, again, that's why I'm big on the Richard Branson using planes that go into space and uses Earth rotation, the slingshot, and then re-enter the atmosphere. And that's why I'm telling you how to do it correctly. And so they can enter and exit, and you can get all the blood you need in China from these different places. Some of them will be right around the corner, and you just need supersonic transport. Some of them you'll need hypersonic. Others you'll need to leave the Earth atmosphere because they're on the other side of the world. And so you need them that leave, they're far enough away. So supersonic transport and regular transport doesn't go away. Maybe it's just over in the Missouri, so it flies normal. But 400 miles an hour, you can be in Missouri in 1 hour. Truly. So, again, these things can be solved. And we don't have to have these issues. They can all go away. All we have to deal with is the scum of the earth. That's it. Really, the big problem is dealing with the scum of the earth. It's always been the big problem. Dealing with all the Satan worshipers, all the scum of the earth. But besides this, if there's a problem in India and a bunch of people get hurt, we can get them all their resources in no time at all. Food and that. They can jump up in 13 hours to China from here, but not really. Not if you leave. You'll be there in 2 hours. Not if you take off from Midway, enter the upper atmosphere of the Earth, slingshot over, you can be in China in a couple hours. And I'm talking this for emergency uses. And this would be the U.S. military, part of the Global Security Council. And this is what the Global Security Council at the UN is supposed to be doing. China, Russia, all working together as Global Shield, Operation Global Shield. And so they can have this and you share resources under the United Nations, and there's agreed upon with technology and that. And that's why I believe you have to have the ability through the United Nations to put incredible sanctions, literally, on the leadership, like destroying them. So, Operation Global Shield. And so, part of the UN Security Council working with the peacekeepers and China's military and that, boom, up in the air, back on the ground. And we need them because something happens here, we need them. We're all in this together, whether you want to believe it or not. So if you want to create them as big enemies, Russia and China and everything, these are the largest, most sophisticated societies in the world. Most sophisticated societies in the world. We can't be enemies with each other. It's the lone roughs like they do in, the Tom Cruise movies. And you can stop making the states and you can making it more bad people and bad corporations. It's more interesting, like the Jackal, he assassinates the guy, not the head of state. Well, they did the one, but he assassinates the guy from the corporation. But you can stop making it about bad countries. That's what I'm saying. You figure out you have these rogue people like they did with the nuclear. It wasn't bad Russia like they did in the movie where it was a bad group within Russia. So instead of the whole country being bad, it's just a bad segment in Russia. And so you rewrite it and no more totally bad countries, just rogue segments. Like they had this rogue military unit that stole the nuclear bomb and then set it off to cover up stealing another nuclear bomb. And they were a rogue Russian military unit. So instead of condemning whole countries, you just get rolled like the conspiracy. There's a rogue group within the government, and they're trying to take over power. But the country isn't bad. The people aren't bad. It's these negative elements. Instead of selling whole countries down the road, you don't need that anymore. And so it's no longer about countries doing this. It's rogue units within the country. So they have these cyber hackers who work for the CIA that go rogue, and they're hacking China, or a rogue group from the Chinese government that works with their intelligence agency goes rogue, and they're hacking the U.S. So it's not selling the Chinese people down the road. It's just some bad people, bad parts of government. And so I want us to stop selling whole groups of people down the road, whole countries. It's not the Palestinian, it's the whatever group with inside that. The Palestinian people are good. It's this rogue terrorist organization with inside of Palestine. And so you don't get people wanting to hurt people then. I hate Pakistanis. No, Pakistanis are good. There's a rogue unit within Pakistan. So let's stop selling whole countries down the road, and let's start going with these conspiracies within the government, these small units that are conspiratizing, that it's not the people, not the general population. It's a small group of rogue people, government officials, or small rogue people within a corporation, right? Like I watched a Korean show, and the one partner was rogue, and he set up the other partner. He did, and he had the other partner hacked into and demoralized and in court, but it wasn't him. It was his partner who was bad. The corporation wasn't bad. The corporation wasn't doing it. It was a rogue person in the corporation that was evil. Like Chase, that had the rogue trader. It wasn't Chase Bank. It was the rogue trader. It was somebody who was trading illegally outside the rules of what Chase allowed. And Jamie Dimon, the whale. So we can do things differently instead of selling whole people down the road. And it can be government officials from, like Tiffany Henyard, one government, but the rest of the government's good. So we're not selling cities and counties and states, and we're selling segments. Like there are a few people at Volkswagen, truly at Volkswagen. It wasn't everybody at Volkswagen. It was the head engineer and the CEO were the main culprits. And then a couple other, everybody else thought it worked. They didn't do the testing in that. The other engineers didn't know. It was only the head engineer and the CEO of Volkswagen that really knew. The other engineers designed it. They didn't do the mileage testing in that. That was a separate unit, and they didn't know. So that's why the other engineers weren't guilty. It was the senior engineer and the CEO of Volkswagen that were guilty. The other people had no idea. They weren't lying about the mileage or anything else. That was all by the CEO and the head engineer. They sabotaged the numbers and so on and so forth and lied about the Volkswagen and how much miles the diesel can get. But that was two people. Now they were at the top, but still, all of Volkswagen, everybody else was good. The Volkswagen employees weren't pieces of garbage. There were two bad apples, really. Two bad apples, truly. Two bad apples. So the shareholders weren't bad. The rest of the Volkswagen employees weren't bad. The Volkswagen dealerships weren't bad. It was two scumbags. As Satan is one entity, and then he has a bunch of scumbags with him. But we stopped selling people down the road. So we need to do these things and start writing things better. And stop selling Iran down the road and that. And saying it's rogue people within. It's the Ayatollah or the president of Iran. But the Iranian people are great. The Iranian companies are good. There's a few bad people in the government, or there's a few bad Iranian companies. But truly, things can change for the better. So again, why don't we do things the right way and stop creating all this hate and start focusing on bonding and focusing on humankind and global survival and that, and you get these random pieces of garbage. So I think we can do this. I'm going to leave the video now. I need to go get something to eat, but I'm not going to Subway. I think I'm going to go to the casino. But anyways, bye.